Hi guys, DeeDee here. Super excited to have put this YouTube hop together with my awesome friend Carissa. It's great. There are some amazing things happening on this hop. Incredible YouTube channels and artists. Definitely subscribe and comment. We have tons of prizes from all of these companies, and it's great. It's a really great event. We're super excited to be here. So my piece today is called Grant Us Courage, and here are some close-up shots. It's definitely mixed media. I start with a wooden panel board, and then I add some layers and some distressing and some really fun things that make me super happy. And I absolutely love how this turned out, and I'm glad that you're here with me today. So let's get started. I mentioned I'm starting on a hardwood board. This is a 6x6" board, and it does have a bit of a gallery edge to it. I think it might be about an inch tall, so it's really sturdy. And I'm covering it in some Liquitex gesso using my Simply Simmons wash brush. And I do give this 2 coats. I give it 1 full coat top to bottom and then around all the sides, and I let that dry completely, or I actually probably, and we'll see here in just a second, but help it along with my Ranger heat tool. I love the Ranger heat tool because it's so quiet and I'm able to use it during classes and demos when I'm teaching, and then people can still hear me. I can give information during the drying process, and then it's not just dead space. So that's really nice. Here I go with the second layer of gesso, and I actually at this point wasn't 100% sure what I was going to do. I did know that I wanted to come in with the brand new to UnMounted Studio. Super excited to have these, you guys. I've been collecting these vintage photos for a really long time, and I've put them into these great collections and just curated these little awesome downloadable digital pieces of awesomeness. I know I said awesome a lot, but that's because it's so cool. So the great thing about these images is that they're at a super high resolution, and you can print them out however you like, whatever size. They're totally resizable. And what I'm doing now is just kind of making this image have a distressed edge. And it is the girl on a swing, and she has her doll on a swing next to her. It's so super cute. And I have some golden fluid matte medium. This is my favorite image transfer material. It's used for a lot of other things as well. It makes a great collage. What's the word I'm looking for? Medium, a great collage medium as well, but I love it for image transfers. So I did a nice even layer of the medium on the picture, and then I did a nice even layer on the wood board. And now I'm burnishing the picture to the wood board. So what happens sometimes, people have issues with their image transfers is because there are bubbles between the picture and the surface. But by burnishing and using that credit card to really, I had a little rubber spatula, but if you use a credit card or a ruler or anything, really burnish from the middle of the picture out and make sure that there are no bubbles between those surfaces. And then you want those to dry. So I did help mine along with some heat. And then using my UnMounted Studio squirt bottle, it has this really luscious fine mist. I was able to just lightly dampen the paper that's on the back of that image, and I'm using my fingers to rub those layers of paper away. And I really, really, really love image transfers. They've taken me a while to get down, so I will say to you, if you've done image transfers before and they haven't worked out, don't stress it. It's just because they take a little bit of practice to kind of get the idea of exactly how much pressure you should apply, how long you should work the image, how long you have to work the image. It was different than how long you should work it too, because maybe sometimes you want a fuzzier, sort of more dreamlike image. Then you might leave a little bit of that paper layer there, and so then it's kind of cloudy and fuzzy, and it's a totally different technique than if you rub away all the paper and you just have the image left. You just kind of have to experiment and play around. And I've found that in mixed media, nothing is truer than that. When you're layering stuff up and adding all kinds of cool layers in, then, you just have to experiment and see what happens. So I was loving the distress that I had around the edge of the image, and I still had kind of a harsh line at the bottom. I took my fingernail and I started to scrape it to pull up the image, and it actually ended up pulling up some of the paint from the wood, which light bulb was really, really incredible. So I got out my Prima Distress tool, and if I was a little more on the ball, I may have just gotten out some sandpaper and it would have worked a little bit quicker, but it's okay because this Prima tool gave me the coolest, craziest, like line scratches, almost as if I was using a wire brush to distress. And you can see that in the up close shots that are at the beginning and at the end of this video. It is superb. Like, it makes me so happy. I'm so sorry that I keep knocking the camera around. It's because I'm distressing so hard. But I love it so much. I can't even believe how cool it is. And all I did is I scraped away some of the image and I scraped away some of the gesso, and then it just is awesome. Now, because I was doing that sanding and stuff, I know that there is some like powder and dust and stuff on my picture, and I want to keep working on it, but I don't want that dust and stuff around. So I just used a baby wipe, and it was a little bit dry, so I added some water to it and wiped it off. Now I am sealing in for sure the picture with the fluid matte medium, and because the fluid matte medium is a medium, I'm covering the entire piece with it. Otherwise, on the left-hand side where there's gesso, I would be stuck with just a layer of gesso, and on the right-hand side, I would have a layer of matte medium. And then anything that I put on top of them is going to react differently in the two areas. So, quick tip, just cover the whole thing in matte medium, or if you like that unpredictability, don't. It's definitely a personal choice kind of thing. I did get out a pencil here. It's a fairly hard pencil. I think it's like a 5B. I'm not B, H, 5H, sorry. And I did some doodling and kind of scratching and just stuff. I just kind of played around in that white space and kind of broke it up a little bit. And then I got out my Daler Rowney acrylic inks and I started using those. I love white space, and I've been trying to tell myself to do one of two things. Either use less white space, not because I don't like it, obviously I do love it, but I think sometimes I kind of rely on it too much, and I always want to push myself as an artist. So I've been telling myself to either use less white space or break up the white space into maybe some like dirtier, grungier portions. And so that's where the pencil and then this Daler Rowney ink came in. I'm just making sure that that white is not so stark. I need to give it a little oomph, a little interest. And I think that both of these things did that really well. And now my project is looking very grungy and really exciting. It's making me super happy. I got out one of my favorite Viva Las Vegas stamps. I designed this one a couple releases ago, and I'm using some no, I apologize. It's Memento. You saw the lid. Is it stays on? I'm sorry. I know that's really terrible of me. I promise in the list, the ingredients list at the bottom, Memento, there it is. Okay, so it's Memento and it's London Fog, and it has the coolest gray tone to it, and I just stamped some numbers sort of all over, and like a Ranger archival would be great. I mean, I could have stamped in that Daler Rowney ink. Like, there are a lot of possibilities, but I did choose a gray because I have this great black and white image, and I ended up not adding any color to it, and that's just fine with me. So I stamped those numbers in some places, and then I got back out my pencil, and I'm doing some more doodling. I'm kind of pulling the chains up from the swing in the image and making it a little more prominent. And I'm anchoring it to the top with some sort of tornado-shaped scribbles. Just some back and forth marks, and it's turning out really well. It's making me really happy. And I kind of hinted at the finished swing seat and her dress, and that it is there even though it's been scraped off. And I went through some books to see what I had, and this saying, "Grant us courage," sort of just popped out at me. I was actually looking for something a bit more childlike to go with these two, but then it made me feel, I'm not sure, it just made me feel something. The image of this girl sort of playing with her doll, and the doll has a very specific chair next to her swing so that she can participate. And "Grant us courage" just really seemed appropriate, like mysteriously appropriate. So I went with it, and I used the same fluid matte medium that I used before to adhere that down to the board and make sure it's nice and permanent. And then I got back out that pencil, that hard pencil, the 5H, and I just kind of scribbled right around it. I did find out that it's a lot harder to write on fluid matte medium than it is on other things. Then while the camera was off, I was sort of playing with some things to see if I didn't want to add some more embellishment type stuff to it, or if I wanted to get out a mark maker or something like that. And I ended up sort of sprinkling these black stars. They're like little like confetti pieces, and they looked incredible exactly where they landed. So what I decided to do was just turn the camera back on and glue them down exactly where they were. So I'm sorry that you didn't see me sprinkle them on, but I quite literally just had a few in my hand, and I tipped it over, turned my hand over, and I let go, and that's where they fell. And it seemed so right. And sometimes that's what you get with mixed media. Sometimes you just play and until it seems right. Now I've got out, it's about a 1/2 inch flat brush, so similar to a wash brush, but only about 1/2 inch wide. And I'm dipping it in some golden fluid acrylic, carbon black, and I knew that I needed some starkness, something to weight the left-hand side because I had that really intense image transfer on the right-hand side. And originally I had thought I was going to wrap some fabric around that area, but then I had this other idea, and so I wanted to seal my project in resin. So I let the paint dry, and I made sure everything was super dry and the stars glue was permanent, and I had everything glued down and sealed. And then I got out my amazing casting resin. So I love Amazing Crafting Products by the Alumilite Corporation, and they are awesome. I have a couple old bottles of resin, so I reserve those to use for when I'm going to be doing a thin layer of resin, because then it doesn't really matter that it's slightly yellow. If it's thin enough, it still just gives everything a really nice sheen. And you'll see here, this is kind of yellow. That's because it's pretty old stuff. I mean, it's a few years old. And I put 50-50, the 1-to-1 ratio. So this little cup has about, well, I don't want to give you the wrong measurements, so I'm going to stop that. It's like 2 tablespoons of the hardener to 2 tablespoons of the resin. And it turns out beautifully. And you just mix until it's nice and, well, I would say clear, but mine's kind of old. And don't judge the product at all because it's a little bit yellow. That's my fault. I should have used it sooner. But you mix it till it's mixed really well and it's not cloudy anymore. And then I'm just going to pour it nice and slowly in a circular motion around my image, around my project. And I know this is about the perfect amount of resin. It might be a little bit too much for the kind of coverage that I wanted, but it's okay. And you can tell it's not everywhere, but I've got this popsicle stick, and I'm just going to slowly draw the resin out to the edges. And because there's this 90-degree angle at the edge, as long as I'm fairly careful, the edge acts as a barrier, and I get a doming effect on my project. And you guys, my artistic style is a huge mix of other influences, and it's incredible things that I've seen other people do, and they do it so well, and it's just so interesting, and I've tried it, and I'm turning it into my own style, and I'm layering up things differently. But I can tell you, like, all the tiny little things that come into my artwork, I have picked them up somewhere else. I've seen someone else do them. And I bring that up because it's really important that we know where we get our inspiration. And for sure, this resin coverage of my final piece, I've seen Kat Kerr do a million times, and she does it so well and so gorgeous. And her projects just have these beautiful sheens to them. So I wanted to give it a go. And I'm not exactly sure why I chose this project, but man, am I glad I did. So I mentioned I'm using that popsicle stick to pull those, that kind of puddle of resin towards the edge. And then once that's done, I'm going to set my popsicle stick to the side, just kind of double check everything and make sure that it's touching all the edges. And what I do is, I tilt the picture, my project, so I can see where the resin is and where it's not. And you can see just how shiny it is. And this is wet. When it dries, it's even shinier because it's so smooth and glass-like. So I'm going to set my stuff to the side, and then I'm going to get out my heat gun, because when I mixed the resin together, the two parts, I created a lot of air bubbles in there. And by applying some heat to the resin, it's going to warm up that air, and all the bubbles are going to come to the surface. And then my resin is going to be clear like glass, and it is awesome. I want to tell you though, I'm using a Ranger heat tool to do this, and it has a very wide nozzle and the heat is very dispersed. Do not use anything with a tight nozzle where the heat comes too direct, because if you heat up resin, it does create fumes and they are harmful if you breathe them in. So make sure you have super good ventilation and you're using as little heat as possible in this case, okay? PSA, keep yourself safe. Art is only good until the artist is dead, all right? So there, now you can see it's all perfect and dried and clear. I will say that as it was drying, I didn't realize when you go to dry your resin or let your resin cure, you let it cure, you don't dry it, you let it cure. You need to put something over your project because it's a 24-hour cure time. You need to put something over your project so that dust and stuff doesn't settle into your resin. But also it needs to be on a flat surface. You can kind of see I have a little bit of a yellow bubble of resin at the bottom. That's because my piece was tilted a little bit and some of the resin moved. It's okay. It happens. Do I love it? No. Is it okay? Yes. And this was the first time I've covered an entire project in resin, so I'm pretty stoked about it. Last thing here is I took two really long pieces of muslin and I stitched them together with my sewing machine in a gorgeous black thread. I did some straight stitching and some zigzag stitching, and I went back and forth, and I went all the way down the whole thing until I had this really long piece of muslin, and I'm wrapping it all the way around the board, and then I'm tying a giant bow so that when it hangs on the wall as an art piece, it has this gorgeous vintagey distressed fabric to it, and it's great. It's just the touch it needed. It brings a little lightness to the kind of harshness that the resin has as it's encased everything. And that's it. I am done. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Please subscribe. Please visit the next stop on the hop. Subscribe and leave comments for everyone, you guys. There's incredible prizes. A lot of the artists have put a lot of prizes forth, and then we have these amazing companies who have decided to help us out and sponsor our hop. So thank you so much. Feel free to find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook, DeeDee Catron-Designer. I have a Facebook group where I post all kinds of things mixed media related, and I have classes and stuff going on. Visit all my friends on this hop. They're incredible. And you guys, there's so much inspiration. We're so glad you joined us. Thank you so much, and I'll see you again. Bye.